What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot of volleyball to discuss, such as the men's PNL in Chicago. Did the U.S. protect its home floor, or were they a little outmatched with that young team of theirs? Also, the U.S. U19 girls volleyball team wound up bringing home the gold for the fourth straight year as they wound up winning the second tournament. Who stood out, and how did they take down the rest of the competition? Also, we have NCAA women's volleyball news as not too far from the season as we're less than 2 months away until the first serve challenge. Also, we have the new 2027 girls volleyball class commits. Let's see who committed and who is not yet to commit. And there's also a big top award given out to NCAA women's volleyball system. Who's that coach? What did he or she do to get said award? Family of volleyball, set down. I'm about to the volleyball action here on Set Point. It's Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio. Your feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way into episode 305 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on StreamYard. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on X. It is actually our main platform as we are no longer on Facebook and Instagram, but we're also on TikTok as well. And also make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. We would definitely appreciate it. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of not only this month, but the end of this year. With your help, we can definitely get to 500, but we need your help. So please do subscribe to us on YouTube. Also, make sure to check out our website, iesportsradio.com, for all the latest sports news, our blog, our pages dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our merchandise shop where you can cop t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and so much more. Also, check out our blog, as we just had a recent blog from Mike Pat on the Baltimore Orioles. Also, check out our Hall of Fame, where yours truly is inductee number 10. And also check out our Fans of the Month and so much more. For the last 11 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to some of our sponsors, Plant Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Seal the Deal Wax Seals, as well as Vital Apparel. So without any further delay, let's get on into what some of our sponsors are all about. See you on the other side.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out those sponsors. We appreciate them for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And the way you can follow Set Point on social media is on Instagram at set_point IESR. And you can follow it on X as well at set_point IE. And you can follow me personally on X as well at Teran Rodriguez 1. So without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action as we got to start off with week 2 of the men's VNL. So the men's VNL actually took place in one of the host sites actually took place in the good old USA. So it actually went to Chicago, Illinois, which I thought was awesome. Every match took place not every match, but some of the matches took place at the Now Center, which is super duper cool. I mean, I'm happy that the VNL was hosted by the US at least once. So good on the U.S. for having that luxury and hopefully taking advantage of it. But did the U.S. take advantage of the home court advantage? We shall see. But for right now, let's recap those said matches just because, well, that was the big volleyball that happened this past week. So on Wednesday, because there was no Tuesday matches, so U.S. wasn't the only one that hosted. Serbia and Bulgaria also hosted. So France swept the Ukraine, which was no surprise. I mean, this is France we're talking about. This is a very talented France team. And although Ukraine has had some decent, good results to start off the VNL, they still aren't in that little itty-bitty stage. Then you had Cuba taking down Germany in 4 sets. So something I did not mention on last week's show is that Cuba actually had a tough time getting into Serbia because of their visas and whatnot. So unfortunately, Cuba didn't have most of their roster, but they actually had the ones that did play, and the ones that did play made a difference against Germany. So that was a big win for Cuba amidst all of their ups and downs and all of their little troubles and whatnot. As Larry B pops in the chat room, he says, T-Rod, thank you for popping in, Larry. I appreciate you, my brother. So next up, we had Slovenia sweeping Turkey, then Argentina sweeping Netherlands. Bulgaria took down Japan in straight sets, but Japan was missing most of its starters. They didn't have their Olympic team like they did last year. And Bulgaria, let's all be honest, this is the Moni Nikolov effect, as well as the Alex Nikolov effect, or the Nikolov effect in general. And then you had Italy taking down Poland in a banger of a 5-set match to kick off all the matches that happened in Chicago. That was a great match. And again, my jealousy level, my fear of missing out level, my unfortunate level of not being in Chicago for the men's VNL really was shot up that day, and my envy level was just that skyrocketed. So it really sucked that I wasn't in Chicago, but unfortunately that's just how it is. But from what I'm hearing is that if you're a member of the media in terms of the VNL, you actually can't record on your phone, or you have to have like a proper contract to like record highlights and whatnot. It's a volleyball world thing, and this was from what I was told, but it is what it is. But Italy took down Poland in 5 sets, which actually handed Poland their first loss of the VNL, which I thought was pretty cool. And then you had Iran taking down Serbia in 4 sets. Brazil swept Canada, which was not too surprising. And then the U.S. outlasted China in 5 sets. Great win for the U.S., even though Eric Shoji did go down with a leg injury. So that was all of Wednesday's matches. Thursday's matches, we had Japan outlasting France in a 5-set barn burner. So the reports of Japan losing and their demise was greatly exaggerated. Then we had Germany taking down the Netherlands in a solid 4-set match. Then you had Ukraine sweeping Turkey, no surprise there. Cuba took down Serbia in 4 sets, no surprise there. Okay. A little surprising just because Cuba, again, they didn't really have most of their roster because of the whole visa thing, but I think it still was incredible that they're able to muster up wins. And then Brazil took down China in straight sets, and then the U.S. took down Canada in the North American battle in straight sets. Though the third set was kind of dicey. It looked like that Canada had won that third set, but eventually the point was overturned and it went to the U.S. and eventually the U.S. won that third set. So instead of being only down 2-1, the U.S. swept Canada, which was big right there. And then jumping over to Friday, we had Ukraine taking down Japan in 5 sets. This whole men's VNL has a lot of parity to it. I mean, I know most of these teams don't have their like Olympic players from last year, but Ukraine has just been on a tear, taking down a bunch of these nationally ranked teams that was like in the top 5 in the world when it came to the VNL. And the entire VNL on the men's side is just so wide open because you also got to realize that Russia's not even partaking in the men's VNL, and they were definitely good last year in terms of the Olympics. So you have that right there to make note of as well. Then you had Iran taking down Argentina in 4 sets. You had Bulgaria upsetting Slovenia in 4 sets, which I thought was impressive. Again, the Nikolov effect is just unreal. Then Cuba took down Netherlands in 4 sets. Another great win for Cuba. And it's another match where they started off slow, lost the first set, and they wound up taking the next 3 sets. So again, this Cuba team has been very inspiring. And the fact that they dealt with adversity and looked it straight in the eye while taking on these teams, it's incredible. Then you had Italy taking down China in straight sets, and then Poland reverse swept Canada in 5 sets. So I thought that was a great comeback win for Poland. If you're Canada, you obviously are frustrated with this, but it is what it is, and that's just how it goes, unfortunately. And why is there should be more matches? Yeah, okay, here we go. So now we jump to Friday's matches. We have France France swept Slovenia. Germany finally broke through, took down Iran in 4. Turkey took down Bulgaria in straight sets, which was a big stunner. However, Moni Nikolov did get hurt in that match against Turkey, and oh man, it's an ankle injury. I'm hoping it's not too bad. X-rays were negative, so hopefully that's an encouraging sign. But I imagine Moni's going to be missing some time, and you really got to feel bad for Moni Nikolov because he was really turning that Bulgaria team around. And again, this is the same Moni Nikolov that helped Long Beach State win the national championship this past spring. So he's a key player for this Bulgarian team, and without him, they just don't look like the same team. And obviously, his brother Alex just showed lots of frustration. Like, if you saw the VNL match, you saw that he just yanked on the net in frustration, and the entire men's volleyball world stood in fear. It just froze, especially in Bulgaria. All eyes were basically on Moni just on the ground, and I feel bad for him. And I hope it's nothing more than just a sprain. And he does have 2 weeks before the final event, so there's that right there. But man, Bulgaria picked a bad time to lose Moni Nikolov, especially after 2 big wins. Then you had Argentina taking down Serbia in 4. Brazil took down Italy in a banger of a barn burner 5-set match. And then Poland swept the U.S. to close off the Saturday matches. And Poland, I will just say, Poland's fans are super passionate and they are super loyal because that crowd was sold out and it felt like it was a home game for Poland. So hats off to Poland and their fans for not only well, hats off to Poland for getting the win, but hats off to their fans for making the trip down to Chicago, Illinois. And then on Sunday, we had Japan sweeping Slovenia, Iran taking down Netherlands in 5, France swept Turkey, no surprise there. Argentina took down Cuba in 5, which, man, that's tough for Cuba. But the fact that they went 3-1 without a majority of their roster, that's incredible, if you ask me. So this Cuba team does not fold by any means necessary. Then you had Ukraine take down Bulgaria in 4 sets. Again, I imagine Moni Nikolov did not play because that's a tough turnaround. Like, you don't sprain your ankle and then play the next game unless you are a superhuman and whatnot. So overall, I think Ukraine, they're just continuing their impressiveness when it came to that. When it comes to the VNL, I think the Ukraine, this is only their first year in the VNL, and they're pulling off some pretty impressive wins, if you ask me. And then Canada swept China. Great win for them. Finally, they were able to break through. I mean, China's not a bad team by means, but they're certainly not on the level of like Brazil and Japan and Italy and so on and so forth. And China kind of nearly made a comeback against the U.S. in that 5th set, but they just fell behind way too much in terms of them being behind that 5th set. And then Germany took down Serbia in 4 sets. You had Brazil taking down Poland in 4 sets, which I thought was a very good win on behalf of the Brazil. And then you had Italy sweeping the U.S. The U.S. actually held their own for the most part. Second set, the U.S. was right there, and unfortunately, they just could not stop Italy's right side hitter, number 11. But I will just say, the U.S., again, this is a young U.S. team. They're not at full strength, and they don't have their Olympians from last year. And I should also mention in the Canada match, they lost Shane Holdaway to a very, very bad injury, and I don't think Shane Holdaway is going to be playing the rest of the way in the VNL, which really sucks. So sending positive vibes and get well soon to Shane Holdaway. So there's that right there, and that's that for all of the men's VNL. So they're not going to be back next week, but in 2 more weeks, the men's VNL will return. So you have that right there. And again, there's not even going to be women's VNL. So really interesting that the VNL has this week off. So I guess that's a little bit more rest for every team, but honestly, it's an itch you can't scratch when it comes to men's volleyball and volleyball in general. So some of the sites for the VNL will include Slovenia, Japan, and Poland for week 3. So week 3 is the final week when it comes to the VNL in terms of the men's side of things. So it's the last chance for everyone to either A, get out of relegation, or B, make the top 8 to eventually make it to the knockout round. So your top 8 is as follows. Brazil is all alone in first place. Then you have Poland, Italy, and Japan, and France. Oh, and Ukraine as well. Oh, and that's not all. Argentina. So Poland, Italy, Japan, France, Ukraine, and Argentina are all knotted up with the same record. They've won 6 games. However, Poland is in second place with 18 points. Italy has 17 points. Japan has 16 points, as well as France. And then Ukraine also has 16 points. And then Argentina has 13 points. And then 8th place, it's a logjam for 8th place. You've got Germany with 16 points in 8th place. And then Cuba's right behind them with 13 points with 4 wins. The rest of these teams also have 4 wins. Iran has 12 points. Bulgaria and Slovenia have 11 points. And the U.S. only has 10 points. So, yeah, for the U.S., they're 13th place, and they have quite a bit of work to do when it comes to improving. But thankfully, they get 2 weeks off, and they don't have to leave their beds until not next week, but the following week. So they've got quite a bit of time before the final frontier. And then you have Canada in 14th place, all alone in 14th place. Then you have China and Turkey tied for 16th place. And then Netherlands and Serbia are bringing up the rear. Serbia is actually all alone in dead last because they only have 3 points, whereas Netherlands has 4 points. Then both Netherlands and Serbia both have 1 win. So you got to remember the team that is dead last when it comes to the whole VNL gets relegated, which that's a big fat no. Anyway, but yeah, that is basically your standings in terms of the men's VNL, and it's going to be exciting times. But I kind of hate how it's on a cliffhanger. Heck, I won't even be able to preview the women's VNL just because that's not until next week, which one of the sites will be in Arlington. Which, if you haven't got your tickets, do so. Anyway, but that is going to do it for the men's VNL portion of the show. Again, we'll have more VNL coverage next week. And I don't know about you all, but this is actually kind of going to be a slow week when it comes to volleyball. You've got a tournament in the AVP that's happening this week, but no VNL. And then you've also got JOs for JO Nationals in terms of boys and girls club volleyball. So not too much happening, but then you've also got some like NORCECA tournaments happening with some of the younger teams. So there you go. All right, but moving right along in terms of the volleyball coverage. So jumping over to the AVP. So the AVP had a tournament last week. We haven't had an AVP tournament in over a month. So the AVP went down to the DMV for the Virginia Beach Open. So on the men's side, you had Gage Basie and Thomas Hunt winning on the men's side. And then on the women's side, you had Maureen Kina and Chloe Loreen winning on the women's side. So looking on the men's side, the runners-up were Derek Bradford and Evan Corey. I wonder if Derek Bradford is actually related to Grayson Bradford. And then third place was Diego Perez and Jeffrey Samuels, as well as David Wizarek and Marcus Carvalhaes. So you had that right there. And there weren't too many notable names in the Virginia Beach Open. You had Tim Brewster and Ryan Ierna, both tied for fifth place, and then so on and so forth. There was, again, not too many notable names. This isn't really like one of the bigger qualifiers and the more notable tournaments. And you also got to remember that some of these AVP stars that partook in the AVP League, they kind of need their rest because now the AVP League's at the halfway point and they get a break from this week until next week when the AVP League comes to Los Angeles, the City of Angels, at the Intuit Dome. And then on the women's side, like I mentioned, Maureen Kina and Chloe Loreen were the champions of the Virginia Beach Open on the women's side. Second place actually went to Piper Furch, the Cal Poly beach volleyball standout, as well as Haley Hamlet, the TCU beach volleyball standout. Third place went to Melia Gementera and Taylor Haganaw, the former Long Beach State duo. Then you also had Anaya Evans and Tori Van Winden. Tori Van Winden, fun fact about her, I think she was a former Cal Poly star. So you had that right there. And then tied for fifth was Kennedy Coakley and Ashley Pater, Ari Keller and Tiffany Svensson. Tice Truman and Sarah Wood also finished fifth. And then Gabrielle Bailey and Katie Dickens also tied for fifth as well. So, again, not too many notable players. I mean, Maya Gessner and Jacinda Ramirez, they also were notable. They finished ninth. AK lost in the round of 16. And that is pretty much it when it comes to some of the notable names. I'm not going to go over everyone, but there you go. So that was that for the Virginia Beach Open. Again, not the biggest tournament, and the AVP didn't really even make note of this tournament all that much. So, especially on social media, which kind of sucks, but what can you do? All right, so this week the AVP is actually back in action as they're heading to the Rocky Mountains for the Denver Open preview, which I think is pretty darn cool if you ask me. So on the men's side, you have some notable names. You have Billy Allen and Paul Lottman, which I imagine is going to be like one of the top 4 seeds. I can't imagine Billy Allen and Paul Lottman not as a top 4 seed. Then you got Diego Perez partnering up with Alexander Harthaler. Then you've got Chase Frischman and Ian Satterfield partnering up. That's a nice little duo right there. Derek Bradford and Hagen Smith are both partnering up as well. Devin Berkey and Ben Vaught are also partnering up. Evan Corey and Troy Field. That's another great duo right there. Notable duo right there. The Basie brothers are back together. Gage Basie and Lars Basie. Those two are partnering up, which I think is awesome. Great to see those two partnering up yet again. And you got Peter Connell and Caleb Queikel partnering up with one another. And then some other notable names. You got Taylor Crabb and Ford Harmon. That's a pretty nice duo right there. We haven't seen that in a minute. You have Thomas Hurst and Alex Ukelberg. Tim Brewster and Ryan Ierna are partnering up as well. Trevor Crabb and Nemanja Komar. And then another notable name on the NCAA men's volleyball side is Will Rotman. So he's now transitioning to beach volleyball as well. But he did grow up in Santa Barbara. Got to remember that. He'll be partnering up with John Schwengel. And then you also have Wyatt Harrison. He'll be partnering up with Charlie Siragus. And that is pretty much it on them. Oh, yeah. Sean Cook is also partnering up with Earl Schultz. So that's pretty awesome right there as well. So all in all, that's pretty much it for all of the notable names in terms of the men's side of things on the Denver Open. So on the women's side, not a whole lot of notable names in terms of the AVP's Denver Open on the women's side. You do have Ashley Pater partnering up with Madison White. Aurora Davis is partnering up with Amanda Ollinger. Ava Brizard of USC, she's partnering up with Jessica McGuire. Gina Arango is partnering up with Avery Jackson. Carly Cannon and Devan Sowers are partnering up with one another. Devin Newberry and Jaden Whitmarsh are in this tournament, which I think is awesome. Ella Connor of Cal Poly is partnering up with Kate Riley, formerly of Stanford Beach Volleyball. Then Piper Furch of Cal Poly is also partnering up with Emma Donnelly. And then you also have two Megan Rices partaking in this. Now, I'm not sure which Megan. So we have one Megan Rice partnering with Anaya Evans, and then you have the other Megan Rice being partnering up with Kendra Van Zwyten. Now, I'm not sure which one is which, because you got to remember, in the AVP, there's two Megan Rices. There's Megan J. Rice from Hermosa Beach / Redondo Beach, and then you've got the other Megan Rice who went to Florida State and who's an engineer. So there you go. Then you got Macy Jerger. She's another notable name from the AVP. She's partnering up with Madison Shields. Then Maya Gessner and Jacinda Ramirez. That's another young up and coming duo right there. And then you also have Tessa Van Winkle partnering up with Kaylee York. Those are some notable names right there. And I think that is it in terms of the women's side of things. Oh, and you also have Kira Zengel of USC Beach Volleyball partnering up with Lily D. Davis. So, and then Kelly Bilardi is also partnering up with Charlotta Bell. So I think that's finally it for some of the notable names right there. If I missed any notable names, just let me know. Yeah, there's no notable names remaining. So anyway, so the AVP's Denver Open will start on July 4th and go all the way through July 6th. So it's a 3-day event, and the seats have not been released yet. They'll probably be released after I do this podcast or vodcast. So there you have it right there. But yeah, that's the AVP's Denver Open in a nutshell. So it's one of the more prestige, I think it's a qualifier event. It's a contender event. So it's a contender event. It's going to be in Denver, Colorado, obviously. The exact location is the Island, 2233 South Geneva Street in Aurora, Colorado. So why is it called the Denver Open? Anyway, so yeah, according to the AVP, Denver is no stranger to beach volleyball. It's home to over 150 beach and grass volleyball events each year. The Mile High City returns to the spotlight with a third contender event of the year. So definitely, if you're in the Denver area, by all means, go to this event. You won't be disappointed and whatnot. So there you go. All right, but that is that for the AVP's portion of the show. We're actually going to take ourselves one commercial break. When we come back, I'll be talking about the U.S. U19 girls volleyball team and how they wound up winning gold. We'll also have some NCAA women's volleyball news, and we'll go over some class of 2027 girls volleyball commits and prospects. So keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we are back with Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing all of our other amazing shows, as well as our website, as well as our sponsors. We definitely appreciate them for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. All right, so without any further delay, let's get on into some more volleyball action as my good friend Brian Francione popped into the chat room. He says, "Good evening, Mr. Teran Rodriguez." Thank you for popping in, Brian. I appreciate you. By the way, Brian, he is the insider for New England / Boston. I should make note of this, that next year's Junior Olympics are actually going to be held in Boston. So yeah, Boston. So if it's not going to be cold up there, which I highly doubt it is, enjoy watching some volleyball. And for everyone else, enjoy being in Boston, the Beantown. But anyway, let's get back on into the volleyball action. So let's actually talk some more USA volleyball. But let's actually get this on a little bit of a positive note. So the U.S. U19 girls volleyball team wound up winning gold at the Norseca Girls U19 Pan American Cup, which I thought was really awesome. So I think three of these players, well, two mainly, but I've seen one other, but three of these players I've seen in action. So when it came to this whole thing, it was really cool. Jamie Morrison was the head coach of Texas A&M women's volleyball. He was the coach of this team. So this actually all started on Tuesday when the U.S. took on Venezuela. They swept Venezuela 25-19, 25-23, and 25-21. And then last Wednesday, the U.S. took down Mexico in straight sets, 25-21, 25-21, and 25-23. Then on June 26th, the U.S. took down Puerto Rico in 4 sets, 20-25, 25-20, 25-14, and 27-25. winning that match allowed the U.S. to advance to the semifinals, where they would take on the Dominican Republic, where they swept them 25-22, 25-14, and 25-20. And then in the gold medal match, the U.S. took down Mexico in straight sets, 25-21, 25-22, and 25-21. So this is actually the fourth straight gold that the U.S. has won. It's the third in the past 4 years that the U.S. has won in the Pan American Cup. And last year, they wound up winning in the NORCECA Continental Championship. So 4 straight years of gold for the U.S. U19 girls team, which I thought was pretty awesome. So some awards that were given out to. MVP was Kari Knotts. Co-best spiker was actually Kari Knotts and Ireland Reel, who I actually have covered in her high school volleyball career. And then the best setter was Tameen Ainu. Tameen Ainu. So if I mispronounce that, I do apologize. But yeah, Tameen Ainu of Hawaii. Yeah, she's from Ailani. Cool. Good stuff. She was named the best setter. So, and then something to note is that assists aren't actually tracked. So you have that right there. And it was a great showing for the U.S. They only dropped 1 set all tournament, and they weren't playing knockoffs by any means. They weren't playing a bunch of nobodies. All the sets that they were in outside of the Venezuela first set and the Puerto Rico third set and the Dominican Republic third set, they all made it to 20 points. So the U.S. did not get breezed. They did not breeze through any opponent. Their opponents were competitive, and they were ready for battle and whatnot. So I thought that was pretty cool that the U.S. had a tough road, and they were rewarded with the gold medal. So great job to the U.S. U19 girls team, as I'm certain most of these players will be seeing at colleges, and you could be seeing them at a 4-year university near you. So congrats to the U.S. U19 team, and congrats on the gold. All right, but speaking of some of these high school players, so let's go over some notable class of 2027 commits. So this was updated from last week. So in terms of commitments, we had McKenna Ziegler. She committed to San Diego. Caitlin Herwig, who was part of Prep Dig's top 20, she committed to Indiana. That's pretty awesome. Then you had Laren Rosenthal. I imagine the little sister of Tread Rosenthal. She committed to Florida State for beach volleyball. Then you had Asia Udo Emma, another top 20 Prep Dig prospect in terms of the class of 2020. She committed to Arizona for indoor, which I thought was cool. And then another person who I think is an under the radar player and is kind of in my area is Whitney Port. She committed to Utah Valley. And then twins Nyla Livings and Naomi Livings, they both commit to LSU. Those two are also good prospects out of Texas, according to Prep Dig. So those are some notable prospects that caught my eye from last week. Let me know if there were some other notable prospects in terms of the class of 2027 in terms of girls volleyball. So you have that right there, and congrats to those players that have committed. So I think it's pretty awesome that they have committed. Some of these players I've covered, and I think the sky's the limit for most of those players. So some notable class of 2027 girls volleyball players that aren't committed. So this was updated from last week. Ireland Reel is still the top prospect that has not committed yet. She's actually ranked number 4 via Prep Dig. Right behind her is Isabel Incinelli, and then Marissa Jones is right behind her. So those 3 that I just mentioned, those are number 4, 5, and 6 via Prep Dig in terms of the overall class of 2027. You also have Kalia Lee, who I've seen play at Cathedral Catholic. Caroline Ward, she's also uncommitted. Gentry Barker, another good player in terms of like the top, I think she's top 30, if not 35 in terms of Prep Dig. And then you got Ava Burgess, another top 35 player in terms of Prep Dig. And then Emma Kingston of Modern Day, who I don't understand why she's not even in the top 100. Like, she is a fantastic middle blocker. So I don't want to say anything that could get me canceled, but Emma Kingston is another player to watch for in terms of the class of 2027. Definitely keep your eye on her recruits. And also Kate Jackson as well. I think she's vastly underrated. I think because she's on a team with Memphis Burnett and Ireland Real, Kate Jackson just does not get that love and appreciation and recognition that she rightfully deserves. Because I've seen her come up big in a couple of her matches, and I think Kate Jackson will be a fantastic addition to any team that she goes to, whether she's going to be defensive specialist or libero or outside hitter or opposite. I think Kate Jackson will be able to do big things for whichever team she commits to. But that is that for the notable class of 2027 girls volleyball players that haven't been committed yet. I'm hoping we get a commitment soon because I'm chomping at the bits, and I'm sure everyone is chomping at the bits to know where some of these girls are going. Like I'm sure everyone has all eyes on Ireland Real, Isabel Incinelli, and Marissa Jones. Ireland Real is an outside hitter. She's 6'4", hailing out of Santa Margarita. Then Isabel Incinelli is 6'5". She's a middle blocker and outside hitter, hailing out of Winter Park. And then Marissa Jones is a 6'2" setter, hailing out of Woodward Academy, which I think is pretty cool if you ask me. So, again, those players. Marissa Jones is from Georgia, for those that are wondering where Woodward Academy is. And then Isabel Incinelli is from the state of Florida. And then, as we all know, Ireland Real is from the state of California, which is why I've covered her matches at Santa Margarita. All right, but that is that for the notable uncommitted class of 2027 girls volleyball players. Definitely keep an eye on these players. Again, all eyes are going to be on Ireland Real, Isabella Incinelli, and Marissa Jones. So there you have it. All right, but that is that for some high school girls volleyball. But now let's talk a little NCAA women's volleyball. So this was actually announced today, and this is such a really cool moment. Penn State women's volleyball coach Katie Schumacher-Cauley is going to be receiving the Jimmy V Award on the ESPYs on July 16th. So in case you don't know or you've been living under a rock, Katie Schumacher-Cauley is the head coach of Penn State women's volleyball. She took over for Russ Rose after an illustrious career from Russ Rose. She was diagnosed with cancer in about at October, breast cancer, and it was some scary times, but she eventually beat breast cancer. And she also helped win a national championship with Penn State's women's volleyball team. Oh, and did I also mention she was the first head coach to help win an NCAA women's volleyball championship, which I think is awesome sauce at the Division I level. So it's a well-deserved honor for Katie Schumacher-Cauley. And honestly, with how much she's been through, not just inside of volleyball, but outside of volleyball, I think it's awesome that she gets this award. And I don't think there's anyone else more deserving than her. So congratulations to Katie Schumacher-Cauley. Hats off to her for not only helping Penn State win a national championship, but making history as well, but also beating breast cancer. A massive set point salute to her. So congratulations to Katie Schumacher-Cauley. But I do want to close off the show with a little bit more of some NCAA women's volleyball news. So this was announced earlier today, is that the First Serve Challenge has announced their television schedule and their times and whatnot. And I also did get word that Fox Sports is also going to be televising some NCAA women's volleyball matches, as well as they're going to be televising they're going to be televising a lot of Penn State. Like Penn State is going to be thrust into the spotlight, probably because they're the national champions, but it's going to be quite a bit of matches on Fox, also quite a bit of matches on Big Ten Network, and then quite a bit of matches on ESPN and whatnot. So the First Serve Challenge is on Friday, August 22nd. It's going to be held in Pinnacle Bank Arena in Lincoln, Nebraska. Basically, that's the bigger gymnasium for Nebraska. If you live under a rock, which I highly doubt Nebraska fans do, the women's volleyball team plays their matches at the Bob Devaney Center, but now they're playing at Pinnacle Bank Arena, which is home to their basketball team. And I think this is awesome sauce that the First Serve Challenge is going to be, the AVCA First Serve Challenge is going to be held at Pinnacle Bank Arena. So it's a 3-day event, well, actually 4-day event. And the first 3 days will take place at Pinnacle Bank Arena. So you have on that day, you have Pitt taking on Nebraska. That's going to be right out the gate. We have that barn burner of a matchup. We have both teams that lost in the national semifinals last year facing off against one another, which I think is cool. By the way, that matchup is going to be televised on Fox. And then following that will be Florida versus Stanford. New look Florida taking on a little bit of a new look Stanford. So keep that in mind right there. Cancel your plans on Friday unless you can't. So yeah, I think those are going to be 2 fun matches, and I'm happy they're going to be televised on Fox because we want to see these volleyball matches televised. We also would like to see NCAA men's volleyball matches televised, but I digress. So anyway, so Saturday, the first serve challenge will be on Saturday and still taking place at Pinnacle Bank Arena. You actually have Kansas taking on Vanderbilt. So you're probably wondering why this matchup. So Vanderbilt just reinstated its women's volleyball team. Well, not reinstated. It restarted its women's volleyball program. And it's really good that Vanderbilt is going to be back on the big stage. And they're going to be taking on some ringers in terms of non-conference play. So Vanderbilt is preparing for SEC play and then some. And they're trying to get their name out there. So that matchup is going to be on FS1. And then following that matchup, it'll be Creighton versus Penn State. That is an Elite 8 rematch from last year where Penn State took down Creighton in 5 sets. So you have that to look forward to as well. So that's on Saturday. Still going to be held in Lincoln, Nebraska at the Pinnacle Bank Arena. And then we jump to Sunday. Same thing. Last day being held at Pinnacle Bank Arena in Lincoln, Nebraska. First matchup, you've got Florida versus Pitt. So that's going to be on ESPN. I think it's really cool. That's going to be televised on ESPN. And again, new look Florida taking on Pitt, which has Olivia Babcock. I think this Pitt team is going to be really darn good this year. I don't know if I'm certain they'll be as good as last year. They do have some question marks, like who's going to be starting at setter following the graduation of Rachel Fairbanks. But I think Pitt will definitely figure it out just because Dan Fisher is a fantastic coach. And same with Florida. Florida is going to have a lot of question marks coming in, especially with a new head coach. But honestly, I think Florida can figure it out this season. Will they have a lot of success? We'll have to wait and see. And then following Pitt versus Florida, you've got Stanford versus Nebraska, the Battle of the Red. This matchup never seems to get old when it comes to Nebraska and Stanford. And honestly, I would not be surprised if there were 10,000 plus in attendance for this matchup. So I think this is going to be a very fun matchup. And I think that this could definitely be an NCAA tournament preview match. So whether it's Elite 8 or Final Four or National Championship, I'm glad Nebraska and Stanford keep this rivalry going just because these two teams love to give it their all, and I think it's good for volleyball that it's going to not only be played on not only going to be played on a big crowd, but it's going to be played on national TV as well. It's going to be played on ESPN, which I think is awesome sauce. And then closing off the first serve challenge is it's on Monday, and this time it'll be held at the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So the first matchup, you've got Kansas versus Penn State. The reigning national champions take on Kansas, which I think is pretty awesome if you ask me. I think Kansas, they have a lot to prove. They have a pretty darn good coaching staff, especially since they added Matt Worley, formerly of Grand Canyon men's volleyball. But yeah, that's going to be a very fun matchup. I'm really interested to see how that matchup will fold and pan out. I mean, Penn State, they've got a bunch of new players, and they still have a bunch of their returning players from last year. So I can't imagine. So everyone thinks that Jess Merzick, with the graduation of Jess Merzick, that Penn State's going to be taking a little bit of a step back, right? No. I think Penn State's going to be just as good, and I'm certain they're at least going to challenge their way for the Big Ten crown, if not a possible repeat. So if I'm anyone that's counting out Penn State, don't. And then closing off the first serve challenge is Minnesota taking on Texas A&M. All right, so Texas A&M, they obviously have Logan Lednicki, and Minnesota, I want to say they still have McKenna Wooker on their team. But this matchup should be very good. Texas A&M nearly went to the Elite Eight. They lost to Wisconsin in the Sweet 16 in 5. I think this Texas A&M team is on the come up, and I think this Texas A&M team is going to be something special this year. And then you got Minnesota as well. Minnesota is kind of that. I mean, they're still good. They're not as eye-popping like some of the other Big Ten teams like Nebraska and Wisconsin and Penn State and so on and so forth. But I think Minnesota can definitely do good things under Keegan Cook. Again, this is going to be a fascinating matchup. I really think that Minnesota they definitely have a chance to do good things this year. But in this matchup, I feel Texas A&M might be the better team, but you never know. I think Texas A&M is going to be heads and tails. I think with Texas A&M, they definitely have a lot of upside to their team, and I definitely think that a lot of their team is going to be kind of focused on Logan Lednicki. But I like this Texas A&M team. They really impressed me last year, and they are going to impress this year. I can feel it. Will they win the SEC? That depends on Texas and Kentucky and so on and so forth. But definitely buy stock into this Texas A&M team while you can. All right, but that is that for the NCAA women's volleyball side of things. That is it for the entire First Serve Challenge. So that whole week right there, that starts the entire volleyball season, or the entire NCAA women's volleyball season. So by way of that, since that will be the case, Set Point will actually be starting off season 7 on August 18th. I imagine it's going to be August 18th. I don't think I'm going to have another scenario where I might have to move it to August 17th, which I hope that's not the case, just because I want to say that could be the week that I have to PA announce a tournament, a girls volleyball tournament in terms of the championship, but we shall see. I imagine Set Point will be starting around that week. Shoot. Wait, I imagine it's going to be that day. I'm not entirely certain if I'll be but we'll see. That's quite a ways away if you ask me, and I'm looking at the wrong month. Yeah, so that's the 18th, but we'll see. It's a time will tell process. That's not going to be for another month or so, well, another month and a half. But that's something to make note of as well. But yeah, that's pretty much that for all the volleyball. I guess I should tell you all that we're actually halfway through the year 2025. I don't know if you all knew this, but we're already halfway through 2025. We're already halfway through the year, which I think is super duper. And the fall of 2025 is going to be something to watch for, especially with Set Point. Set Point will be turning 6 years old in September. It's actually going to be turning 6 years old in 3 months exactly. So so you have that right there. And then, like I mentioned, the season 7 premiere of Set Point will be on August, probably 18th, if not the 17th. I mean, last year I had to have the season 5 conclusion on a Sunday, which really sucked, but it is what it is. But again, it's a time will tell process. So I imagine the season 6 conclusion of Set Point will be on Monday, August 11th, and then the season 7 premiere will be on either August 17th or August 18th, give or take. But on that note, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I know it wasn't as long of a show as previous episodes, but what can you do? It's not as busy of a volleyball week as it has been in the past. But for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have an amazing 4th of July weekend. Enjoy your time with your family. Be safe, be well. Enjoy all the volleyball action happening whether it's at the AVP, whether it's in club volleyball, or whether it's at the lower levels, or so on and so forth. But I will see you all on Thursday for Lead Off Thursday. Have an amazing week. Enjoy your 4th of July weekend, and don't blow your hands off when it comes to lighting fireworks. Have a great week, everybody. Peace.